the first anniversary of their installation of TEC there. This is all in sugar. Hi, are we on now? Yes. Okay. Welcome to the technical typing course. And as I said, I hope people in the overflow room can hear me now. The purpose of the course is going to have each of you who wants to actually type something with this system called TEC this week and get it just to get started on it, so that you know what it's like and you know whether you're going to want to type any more with it or not. Does everyone have a copy of the handout? The handout is mostly things that I don't want to read to you in the class, because it talks about the situation about TEC right now at Stanford campus and practical things about if you don't have an account for using it, how you can get one. And if you have any questions on this, just see me after class, and we'll go over to the computer science department and get accounts for everyone who needs them. I think we'll have enough, but it would be best if people would work in groups. I don't think we can start 50 new accounts, for example. So if you might find it better to work in groups of 2 if you're from some other department or some other place that doesn't have account. But let me just check. How many people already know how to use a computer that's running TEC? And how many do not? How many here don't have access to a computer? So that's about 60% do not. So those 60% will want to come over to the computer science department this afternoon, let's say, and get guest accounts, which for this week will allow you to do this. So these please raise your hand if you've never used a computer before. That's okay. Well, this will be a lot of fun for you, I'm sure, and also a little bit of trial, because computers don't understand body language and so on. So you have to learn to deal with them in a different way than dealing with people. But for those people, it'll take you a day or 2 to get used to the idea of a computer itself. And we have students lined up to help you get through this. People will be around tonight and every night this week between 5:15 and 6:15, and a little bit before and a little bit after, to help people who are just brand new getting started, as well as to help people who are having other kind of problems with the computer. Okay, so we're going to try to help everyone get started, and I know there are some people in this class that have already been using TEC for a while, and they're going to have questions that are more advanced than the others. I'm going to try to keep the level of the class to the beginners, and only if there's a great demand on Thursday or Friday, then I'll go into things that are a little bit more advanced. But there's going to be another class next week that's a lot more advanced, and I'm not right now planning to have anything in between. There's sort of the one for just starting, and then there's one for the experts, and assuming that if you're in between, you just get help from people who are around who are also in between. Right now. Although if there's a great demand for it, then I'll go into some of the in-between topics later on. Okay, now, any questions right off? I want to introduce you to the teaching assistant, because he's a person, if you can't find me around, I'll be trying to be around to help solve any problems, but also you should know Jim. He's going to come in now from the overflow room. Here's your chance to be on TV, Jim. This Jim Boyce, who's graciously volunteered. Oops, there. You got him? There he is. Okay. Yeah, the camera does. Look at that. Okay. Now, this is Jim, who's graciously volunteered to be a teaching assistant this week, and So either him or me should be around if you have problems. One of the things I want to do is look at exactly the problems that you're having. So I'm going to be walking around looking over people's shoulders and find out what the trouble is. Of course, my problem is I've been using TEC for more than 3 years myself, and I can't remember what it was like the first few days. And so I got to watch what you people are doing and see. As I recall, one of the hardest things to learn at the beginning was just that it wasn't immediately direct. When you type on a typewriter, you type an A symbol, and out comes an A on the page, and there it is. And this is nice because you can see what you've done, and you can see exactly where it's going to be on the page and everything. The only thing that's not nice about it is what if you didn't want it there? Then you have to erase it and move it around. Now, with TEC, it's quite a bit different. What you type you type an A on your terminal, and you get an A into a file. But that A is just an instruction to the computer that sometimes you're going to want to typeset an A. And you have to take this this file that you've built containing all your manuscript, and you have to run that through a computer program. The computer program will actually put the A on the page. So the fact that it's indirect, that it's not there yet, you'll be typing it in, but it's still not typeset, is a little bit hard to get used to at the beginning. But I think you'll get. Now this is the textbook. Does everyone have a copy of the textbook? If you don't, anyway, you can get it in the bookstore, and or you can steal one or look over a neighbor's copy or something like that. The book is in 3 parts, and the first part is just an introduction to all of the research that I myself was doing on typography, and then comes the middle part. The main part is the complete instruction to TEC, including much more than you'll ever want to know probably about the system. Then the last part is about a system that designs the letters themselves. I won't be talking about that this week. So the middle part is the part that you'll be using, and there's an index to the middle part that you'll find very helpful, but you'll have to always search for the index because it's stuck in the middle. So starting about page 190 is an index. However, there's another index for the third part. These parts are all separately page numbered, so you have to get used to sticking in the middle of the book to get the index. Some people have actually ripped their book apart, put new covers on it, and just so they have the index on. Okay. Now, the reason for TEC is to go all the way to the finest possible the finest possible typeset quality. When computers were first used, they could do numbers only. In fact, the first attachment to a computer that was used in printing was in 1850, and it printed tables in Sweden. And then gradually computers learned to do uppercase letters also. In fact, during the 60s, the computers could even handle lowercase letters, and so it got a little nicer and a little nicer, and pretty soon they could do letters with variable spacing, and all of a sudden it turns out that it got better and better till it was finally time to go all the way to the ultimate. Why not say anything that a printer can do, you could do with a computer? Instead of just getting something that looks nice or something that looks good, we wanted something that looks great, that would really be as well as a printer could do. Except I'm not talking about beautifully calligraphed manuscripts with gold leaf and things like this. We're not quite into the ultimate in that way. But what actually it gives us now the ability to have fine printing, even though we're not going through professionals, but common people like you and I can actually have fine printing. Now, Well, how much many of us really need fine printing? I mean, there's a general feeling that most people don't care that much about how most scientists don't care that much, let's say, about how their work looks, as long as they get promoted by writing a paper. That's the only thing important to them, is what people say, and they'll toss it out, and sometimes books would get printed and so on, but most of the time messy manuscript was okay as long as you got the point across. This was a general feeling that people didn't really need fine printing very much. The most surprising thing to me with the use of TeX was how many people who have for the first time the power to do this kind of quality typesetting themselves, how much they actually get into it, and they had this latent desire that they didn't even know about to make what they write look actually beautiful as well. This is very surprising. It seems to have affected more than half of the people who've had the chance to do it, and the reason was because it was that they didn't know they had this in them before, was because it was so difficult. It was difficult to fiddle with something that's already been printed on a page and make changes and do it again. Now, however, that it's fairly easy to get this ultimate in quality, then it turns out that a lot of people are really interested. It's amazing how many people have gotten excited about fiddling with fine details of spacing, and this has not only increased their joy in getting good printing out, but it's also increased their dissatisfaction with most of what printing they see, and so you sort of you win some and you lose some. Right now, I find it almost impossible to read a book without thinking about the fonts that are in there and the spacing and so on, or I go to a restaurant, and the first 10 minutes I'll be studying the spacing on the menu, and then the waiter will come and I won't have even thought about the food yet. So this, but I better not talk about food since we're at lunchtime. We're meeting at lunchtime now. Okay, so the goal of TeX then is to do really quality things, and not just adequate, but super. There are other systems that are very good at making nice looking reports, easy to get the reports done, and very nice looking reports, especially the Scribe system which we have on campus. And those would be recommended for people whose goal is to have very nice and readable reports. But the purpose of TeX is to go beyond very nice to actually super, and this means you have to do a little bit more. The interesting thing to me was that it wasn't that much more to go from the level of good quality to excellent quality, but you did have to pay some more attention to details. There's the kind of things that you could take pride in, these details, and give you a lot of job satisfaction as you're doing it. It's not that much more work, but it still is. If you're really not interested in the high quality, then don't and you don't want to hassle. You don't really care too much about the fine points. So then TeX is a little bit more powerful and cumbersome a tool for you to work with than for something that's just going to produce lots of reports quickly. Now, okay, before I take this away, I want everybody to get a chance to look at this beautiful TeX symbol again that was made in sugar in frosting by some people last week because we needed some logo here. This is the fact that the E is a little lower in here means that you pronounce it TeX, and it's my system. There are other systems that are pronounced TeX, and they have nothing to do with typesetting. I mean, specifically, there's an operating system for Honeywell computers, for example, that's called TeX, and there's some other systems that are called TeX. But this one is called Tau Epsilon Chi. These aren't really T's and E's and X's. These are Greek letters here, and it's the Greek word for art and technology, which is we're trying to emphasize here beautiful printing and all that stuff. So you have a handout. Let's see, I got to get through all the preliminaries. You've got this handout, and it tells, as I said, how to get computer accounts. And there's also a problem that we're having today, that according to this handout, you're supposed to use the Dover printer to print your homework, your exercises. But the Dover printer has been down since Friday, and we have some people over at Xerox this afternoon trying to look at the specs and test out and find out what's wrong with our boards, and we feel that it'll be ready tomorrow, but not tonight. So that means that there are a couple of changes to this handout that you make in order to run tonight if you get as far as actually getting something through tech. So I can quick give you the patches to this. In the first place, when you run the program, according to the manual, if you're normally running tech at SAIL, you would say RTEX. To the operating system, this means run, and this is TEX. But instead, for today, since we're going to have to use another version that goes to the XGP printer, you say RXGP-TEX. And that gets you the old version of tech that comes out on the XGP. The XGP is the printer that produced this handout, actually. This particular handout is it was run on this Xerox graphics printer, which is our old printer. It's not as good a quality as you get off of the Dover, but it's good enough for our purposes today. Then instead of using the word Dover here, you say XS, which prints on the XGP. And furthermore, your output of this version of tech is going to be called paper.xgp instead of paper.pre. And so those two changes are also made. So you start out, and on the computer you make up a manuscript file which will be called paper.tex, and then you send it to the XGP Tech computer program. The XGP Tech computer program reads in what your manuscript file, and out comes two other files. One is called errors.temp. This is the one that just records any errors that tech detected in your manuscript. These errors are going to be something we're going to be talking about a lot this week, because it's one of the things you're going to have to learn how to get through. Everybody makes mistakes, and especially when you're working with a computer that's going to check to see whether what you typed in might make sense to it, but not exactly the sense that you had in mind. So we'll see. We'll talk a lot about errors this week, and how. But this file also records for me what you did, and if you make a copy of this and you have any trouble, you can show this file to me, and I'll be able to tell what went wrong and how you can avoid the problem. So when you run this program, it reads your paper.tex file, and it produces two of its own. The one called paper.xgp contains everything that this XGP machine needs to produce a final copy, like the handout itself that we're looking at. Now, so for example, at the very top, if you look in fine print, this will say hand.xgp. So the piece of paper you're holding was really printed by this printer, by this XGP printer, and it was called. You see, it was done this morning at 9:35, and it was, and here's the name of the file, the time, and the page, and so on, and it. And the .xgp file was the instructions to the printer how to make this page look the way it does. So it would tell it where to put all the letters and what style of letters and everything to use. There was another program, hand.tex, another file, hand.tex, which I actually typed into the computer. This is the one that describes the handout, and we'll look at this to get examples of one of this. All right, now. Those of you who haven't used computers before will find that your first learning experience will be mostly just learning how to type in anything to the computer, how to make a file that contains your instructions to tech. So tonight you'll probably be going just through that hassle, and you won't even have run anything through TeX by tomorrow. So others of you, though, who already know that, will be able to start experimenting with TeX itself tonight. We'll have, as I said, we're going to have people around to help you get over whatever hurdles you have to get over and whatever level you're at right now. I'm going to first talk about how you use TeX to do straight copy, and then I'll talk about doing technical things with it and mathematics. Each of you, I hope, has something in mind that you would like to use TeX for. Some sample job that you would like to typeset. If you haven't got anything in mind, you might run around the computer science building and see if there's anybody's work needs to be done, or you could just pick a random book out of the library and do that. I'm thinking of something that's going to come out to be 4 or 5 pages long, not 40 or 50 pages long at the end of the week. We haven't got that much extra computer resources probably for 100 people to do 40 each 40 things during the daytime because our computer's already saturated. But I'm thinking of a 4 or 5 page exercise that would get you really started, and enough to after that you would be on your way to be doing just about the longer papers, but let that be next week, and then there'll be a lot of people around that can help you.
Question.
Yeah, question.
By the end of this week, will we be equipped for putting things in boxes and making diagrams and things like that, or is that into next week?
I think you'll be able to do a lot of that, but not arbitrarily complicated thing. One of the things about printing is that it's been going on for over 500 years. And every year somebody thinks of a new thing to do, so this is a lot of things have accumulated over time, and so there's some inherent complexity. And I can't teach in this 1 week how you do everything that a printer has ever thought of doing during 500 years. So I'm going to try to cover the most important things. Still, you'll find that every user of TeX will find that as you go through a year. Every week you might see something a little bit different that you would like to do, or something that you didn't even know you'd like to do. You might think of doing something that printers haven't even ever thought of before. So I can't really answer exactly what the cutoff is going to be, but we're going to be able to do quite a lot of powerful things this week, and I'm going to look mostly at the things that people need for the papers that they're doing. If you have a really complicated application, I'm going to have to defer it though, and just talk to you about it personally, because we only have a limited amount of time during the class. And I want to make sure I don't lose the people who are just starting. Okay. Now in this room you can also ask questions, and there's a microphone in front of you. Do you see that little black thing by the TV set? If you want to ask a question, just raise your hand, and then you pick up the microphone. You push the red button in, and this all goes on. This is really fancy stuff. But aren't there any questions in here? There must be a question. Yes. She just wants to try playing with the microphone. Okay.
Is the XGP printer in the same room as the Dover that is room 221?
That's right. I got to change the room. It's up on the 4th floor. I don't know the number of the room. It's up on the 4th floor. It's a great big. As you come to the top of the steps on the 4th floor, you go sort of towards your right, and that's the direction toward it. There will be people that will help you, I guess. I don't know the number. Yes?
Oh, where are the terminals that we're supposed to use for connecting to either of these computers?
We're just going to scrounge around for terminals over in Jack's Hall. So you come over there. After 5 o'clock, we'll be able to do it. I mean, I'll let you use my terminal and so on. People who come over. You should come before 5 to get an account, because Susan will be going home. Susan will be going home at normal time tonight. She's the one who gets you started with an account. Otherwise, you'd have to use one of our own accounts. But we're just going to go through the building. I have a master key, and I can steal and sneak in. Okay.
For people who have access to SCORE, is it okay to use the variant?
Oh yeah, please do, because we don't want to have there's about 100 people, and we don't have enough to handle everybody coming through. So the SCORE computer and the variant over in this building upstairs here would be best. Also, because if you already have access to SCORE, that means that's what you'll be wanting to use for your work on tech. As I say in the handout, the present at present we have 5 different ways to use the output of tech on campus. However, there's going to be many more within a year, but right now it would be for most of you, I think, just getting exposure to what it would be like when these other systems proliferate around the campus later on.
Question. For people in Xerox, the same holds true?
Well, for people who are here visiting from Xerox, please go to Xerox and use tech at Xerox. Yeah, you've got a very excellent installation of tech there. One of the best.
Question?
Yes.
What are the possibilities of getting long-term accounts? How much does it cost?
You'll have to ask me that after class. I don't want to take the time for that now. Okay. And so now, when we start using it, the first thing is just to type straight copy, things that don't have mathematics in it. What do you do? And the answer is it's almost like just typing it on a typewriter. There's just a few things that make it different to do fine printing from ordinary printing. Let's see if I can look at this handout and see and see anything that was special. Okay. Well, first of all, of course, this top line here is in bold faces. These letters are a little darker than the rest of them. On the Dover, you'd see it a lot better than on the XGP, but it's true. Then also, I lowered the E in tech and so on. Okay, let's defer that question though for a minute. I got to write myself notes here of things that I plan to cover. So the only thing unusual that I see here in these first lines is the fact that the E is lowered in tech. Otherwise, I'm just typing in pretty much the same. So let's take a look at at the paragraph. Let's see. Guest accounts on the SAIL computer will be available this week for people who don't already have access to tech. Now, what I did here is I defined a special thing that's going to typeset the logo for tech every time it occurs. This / character is the instruction saying this is going to be something special coming up here. It's not just ordinary. If I had left out the /, it would just go like a TEX into the file. But putting the / in it says that somewhere I should have defined what this instruction is. A lot of the instructions are already known to tech. Those that are already known are all listed in the index of the manual. But this particular one was not known to tech, so actually I defined it up here with some long-winded things which we aren't going to look at for now. It's just saying that there is a way to tell it to make this letters TEX with the E, squeezed together a little bit and with the E dropped. The point is right now that I type a / in front of such an instruction, and then that's an abbreviation. Now you won't be having to do that in the manuscripts that you're working on, although you might have something else that is really unusual about that manuscript. If so, you would get a tech wizard to tell you how to make a definition like this one up here, which is sort of wizardry. Okay. Now. To sign up for such an account, so I just type the rest of this all exactly as it would be. Notice though that it doesn't matter where I break the lines at the end of each line. The carriage return at the end of every line is just like a space. As far as TEC is concerned, it doesn't see any difference between that carriage return and a space. And so afterwards, when we got the paragraph actually set, the lines came out so that everything would be even at the right hand. Okay. Now, I guess there wasn't that much then in this whole example. Oh, yes? Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm glad you asked that, Philip. Now, okay, what, except I'm planning to talk about that later. I'm sorry, I'm going to go on. And what it does, the quick answer is that this means that it won't break a line at the end of the hyphen. Okay, but that's a problem that you run into in a minute. I think I'll get to that. I'll get to that later today. Okay, now I guess the first thing that I can talk about is I talked about these. They're called control sequences. It starts with a backslash and then a bunch of letters, and then a control sequence ends with the first thing that isn't a letter. So here, for example, I had an apostrophe, and it wasn't a letter, so the sequence ended there. But now, notice up here where I said TEC, then I had a space, and then NICAL. Now, a space following a control sequence is always ignored because, as far as TEC knows, it was the way you wanted to end the name of the control sequence. If I didn't have that space there, the control sequence would have to be technical, and I haven't defined any control sequence technical. So I had to put the space there. But actually, I didn't want a space in the handout. Okay. Well, the spaces are ignored after the control sequence. So that was fine in that case. But what about the next place where I'm typing something like TEC is presently running at Stanford, and I do want a space after it? I got to do something about that to get that space in. Okay, so I had to worry a little about that, and the answer is you use a backslash and a space. That means there's the space. Okay, so I had to remember, because TEC was this special control sequence, I had to remember that the space after it gets gobbled up and doesn't appear finally, and so I had to put this backslash space after it. So that's a little bit of a hassle remembering, if I was using something like that, remembering that I'm going to lose the space after it. So you get used to putting in an extra backslash space in a place where you want a space to occur. Otherwise, the space would not appear. Similarly, if you leave 5 spaces in a row, TEC treats that as same as if it was one space. So if you want 5 spaces in a row, you say backslash space, backslash space, backslash space 5 times. Question?
Yes. Can you use a backslash instead of a space?
A backslash space, but not a backslash is...
No, in the upper example, where you said that you left a space as an end of a special instruction.
A backslash itself would end an instruction. Another instruction. But see, this backslash is beginning a second instruction. And the second instruction is backslash space.
No, my question referred to where you wrote technical, TEC/NIC.
Yes.
Will that work?
Now, if I put a backslash in here, before
right,
NICIL,
right.
then it would say the control sequence TEX and the control sequence nickel. And it would look to see what does nickel mean, and it would probably say undefined control sequence, and you'd get an error message. It would say undefined control sequence nickel. It doesn't know what nickel means. Okay, no. So backslash really is saying to TEC, watch out, something is coming after this backslash that's special. Look at what's coming after it and see what it is. Now the thing after the backslash is if the thing after the backslash is a letter, then it looks until you get to the end of the letters. But if the thing after the backslash is not a letter, then it's just one symbol long, and that's, for example, backslash space is an example of that. It's not, the space isn't a letter. Okay, I think you'll get into that. You'll understand. Now let me see. Before I talk any more about this handout, I want to talk about some more straight text. I decided I just got this book from the bookstore, beautiful book called Stanford, From the Foothills to the Bay. And so I thought that I would look inside there and just to get a random sample of what to typeset. And I chose the first. I decided I would just open the book, and whatever page I came to first, that would be what I would use as an example. This morning, and I opened to page 36, and I got this a story about the early years of Stanford. Okay, now as you see right off. In fact, you can't see it in color, but this S is in red. So right off, there's something fancy that the printer had done here to get that S to come down. And in this class, I won't explain to you how you get that done because it's not typical for technical typing. However, next week that'll be one of the first exercises that we do. So what I did was then, in order to type this account, I made a definition of something called fancy, all right. And then when I typed the paragraph, I said fancy Senator and Mrs. Stanford, and I'll tell you about why I put a backslash after Mrs. Very soon. So I just said fancy, and then that S got set fancy, okay. And it moved the second line over and did the right thing. Okay, so this is so anyway, it's possible to do these things with tech, but if you need them, just see, for the time being, when you're starting out, ask a wizard to make you your control sequence for the particular application, and then after a month of that, then start to look at what these wizards are doing for you, and after 5 months of that, start being a wizard for somebody else. That's the way it works. Now, but anyway, control sequences then can be designed to do lots of things. And as far as you're concerned right now, though, is they're sort of magical things that wizards will do for you. Okay. Now, when we look at this text, we see one thing that's different from typing, and that's these quote marks. You see, on a typewriter, you only have your double quote symbol, but printers have two kinds. They have opening quotes and ending quotes, right? And so that was one of the things that I had to watch out as I typed the manuscript. And so to get the opening quotes, I typed on your computer terminal. You'll see there's two kinds there's an apostrophe and a reverse apostrophe. So I typed the reverse apostrophe, two of them here at the beginning, and two regular apostrophes. You can't see it too well on your TV screen, but these are regular apostrophes. These are reverse apostrophes, and those both appear on you can type both of these into the computer, but they're one symbol. They're single symbols, and you type them one at a time, and then Tech reads this, and this is one of the ligature combinations that it recognizes. Two opening quotes in a row get changed into a single opening double quote mark. Okay, so that's one thing that's different from a typewriter. If you would sit there and use your double quote on a typewriter, it would actually turn out that I think you get ending quotes both times. Yes?
Does Tech automatically adjust the spacing between the two quotes so that it comes out as a printer's quote mark?
That's right. It does that. You see. This is of course the book that was printed, but if you look at what Tech did with it, this is what came out. Okay, so the spacing does come out automatically. The only tricky thing is if you have if you put three in a row, like you want double quotes and then followed by a single quote, or did you mean single quote followed by double quote? And you want to get just the right amount of spacing in between, but you don't want a line to break from. You don't want to break between the end of a line, between the double quote at the end of one line and the single quote at the beginning of the next line, or something like that, right? So, and computer is going to be stupid and break at any space unless you're careful about it. So there are special control sequences developed for applications where you're going to have a lot of quotes inside of quotes. But the common case is you just have double quotes and you type them this simple way. Okay. Now, another thing in fact, this paragraph was nice because it illustrated the two things that are most different between printing and typing. There's this dash here. When you're typing, if you have to make a dash, well, you make a bunch of hyphens. And here's a hyphen. This looks quite different, of course, and this dash is long. Now, actually, there's something in between this dash and a hyphen also that printers use, and you'll see it later on another page of this book. This long dash is called an M dash, and then there's an N dash, which is only half as long. And so with TeX, you got to learn the difference between different kind of hyphens and dashes, and the idea is a hyphen is just an ordinary hyphen, but an N dash is 2 hyphens, an M dash is 3 hyphens. So when I'm typing this particular example, and after the word shadow, I use 3 dashes there. Okay. I didn't put spaces before and after either. You see, there aren't spaces before and after. Some people like spaces before and after dashes, but it's just pretty much frowned on, I think. Okay. Now, the other thing is, why did I put this backslash here? Oh, yeah, got a question?
Does TeX still know to break at the end, before the dash or at the end of the dash? Or
okay, TeX will break after any dash or any hyphen, but not before. In fact, I think most people frown on breaking before. If you want to allow a break there's another control sequence that you could do, saying a possible break here. But mostly you just type it this way, and this would allow a break after the dash. And that leads me to Phyllis's question: what if you didn't want to break after a particular hyphen or after a particular dash? Because Jeannie's question is, where is it allowed to essentially, when we get this at the lines end at certain places, but how does TeX know it's okay to end there and not but not to end in the middle of a word or something like that? Well, the places that are allowed to break are spaces between words and after hyphens and dashes. Okay. That's why I said if you had 2 quotes separated by a space, you'd want to do something special so that space wouldn't be considered as a possible place where you could break between lines. Now, what if you didn't want to break though after a hyphen? And that's what came out in our handout here. I was giving Jim Boyce's phone number, and I didn't know if it was going to come at the end of a line or not, but it might have. And so if I had just typed the phone number after 497 hyphen, it might have considered this as a hyphen, so start a new line with the 1658. And what I did was I made this all into a box. We'll explain exactly what HBox means later on in the course. But by putting anything into a box, this means treat it as a unit that you can't split up. There's no once something is put into a box, it's just like a single letter of type. And so when I said HBox bracket of something, close the bracket, that says that whatever is inside of that is treated exactly as if it was a indivisible unit. That's as if it was a big letter or something like that. And that keeps TeX from ever then breaking a line in the middle of it. Okay. So that was we'll talk more about that later. So usually, in other words, you like the fact that it'll automatically break at the end of a hyphen or dash, but there are some times when those just don't seem psychologically good places to break. Okay, now why did I put the backslash in front of the space in Stanford? Does anybody have an idea? No. It's because it's a logo? Misses? No. Adjust the spacing between the dot and the S.
Because of the period.
Yeah, because of the period here. This is it. Depending on how the font of type is set up, the designer of the font of type has said how much space to put between ordinary words and how much space to put after periods. And these are independently controlled. So after a period on this particular phonotype, you get a little bit more space than between words. Other people like French spacing, which doesn't do that, but there will be slightly more space here before the B and but than after that. And some people say that psychologically this is better because you're pausing at the end of a sentence for a new, gives your mind just a tiny little bit of extra time to get ready for the next sentence. And so there's a little extra space there. Well, but how is TeX going to know that this first period wasn't the end of a sentence? And it wouldn't put this little extra space at the end of that first sentence. So when you're typing a word that ends in some abbreviation, ends with a period, then you say, then again you put a control space after it. Otherwise you get too much space between the two. Okay, so I had to do that a couple of times. I had to do it for Dr. Jordan, but I did something different in the next paragraph. Okay, now. So to summarize what I said so far, the main differences between ordinary straight typing and typing to get the quality that you get for printer is that you distinguish between quote marks, opening quotes and closing quotes, and you distinguish between dashes. And then sometimes you have to worry about where lines are going to break on you. If you don't worry about that at the beginning, you'll see it sometimes in the output, and then you will patch that up. Now, as I said, TeX strives to get fine printing, and I did this example to be similar to the the line width of the original, although I don't have the same spacing between letters, and it turned out that it didn't break the lines exactly the same as was in the published book. The published book had a rather loose line here with fairly wide spaces between words affairs during their lifetimes, and the next line is a little bit tight, parsing out of all the money. So TeX actually put par on this previous line, but it might be a little different with a different style of type. But one of the things that TeX does is it reads your whole paragraph before it decides how it's going to divide it up into lines, so that the end of the paragraph can influence, if there's something bad coming up on the end of the paragraph, something that would be hard to split or something like that, then the earlier parts of the paragraph will be adjusted so that this is taken care of. And one of the other I say the most important other thing about straight text that should be noted is something that I call to avoid psychologically bad breaks. And it's something that seems to have come in mostly because of computer typesetting. While if a human operator is sitting there deciding where the end of every line is going to be, maybe subconsciously you don't even think of ending a line at a place that's a little bit psychologically bad. But sometimes, but the computer has to be told that some places, some breaks aren't quite so nice, like I said, in the middle of a phone number. Now, an example is if you're ending let's see. Suppose somebody says, see figure 1, and you turn the page, see figure, then turn to page 1, end of paragraph. It doesn't look very good. Or even if it's in the even on one line you say see figure and then 1 is at the next one. It's usually, especially if the word figure is abbreviated, you usually like to have figure 1 as a unit without breaking in between the two. Similarly, between names, somehow my own name, for example, Donald E. Knuth, it would look better to me if it said Don-old E. Knuth than if it was Donald and then E. Knuth on the next line. You can break or Donald E. on this line, and then Knuth on the next line is okay, but somehow the break between the Donald and the E isn't so good. And it's the same with a lot of titles And also when you're in scientific work, quite often this happens most often in mathematical things, or when you have units of measure, you say 3 inches. You don't want to have 3 on one side and in on the next line abbreviation or something like that. So, so to avoid psychologically bad breaks, it turns out that the reason I'm bringing it up is it occurs in this next paragraph here. Collis P. Huntington. And I thought I'd tell Tech not to break between Collis and P if at all possible. And so I made up a little, I made up a little a special instruction to Tech, which this is a little bit of magic that to tell you about later. But the main point of it is now I can use a double arrow symbol, and that will give me a space that is undesirable for breaks. And so I use that here after Collis P. Huntington. By the way, a period. This P is also an abbreviation, but Tech doesn't add extra space if it follows a capital letter. If the period follows a capital letter, it doesn't consider that to be the end of a sentence because that's so common to have an initial like that. But I put this double arrow in between, saying try to tie these words together on the same line if you can. But I did it wrong, didn't I? I should have put it here. A little bit of a problem there. Okay, sorry. And then I did the same after Mrs. Stanford and Dr. Jordan. This automatically also gives it a normal space instead of a space after a sentence. This refinement then to avoid psychologically bad breaks is probably the only other thing that separates a typing of straight text. It's the most common thing that occurs in typing of straight text. And your quote marks, your dashes, and psychologically bad breaks after in certain places.
Question?
Question?
Yeah, if you have a period following capital and you do want that to be the end of a sentence, how do you take care of that?
How do I take care of that? Then that's described in the manual. There's you say null at the end, like you say supported by the NSF, and then comes a period, right? And so if you say, for example, NSF null period is one way to do it. To see, there's other ways, but that's one way. That's the way I usually use. Okay, so there are ways to fool Tech the other way around too. It's terrible that period has to cover all these things, and I have been unable to think of a way that would automatically do all of these things.
Question. Is that double arrow symbol a standard character on the ASCII keyboard, or is that something you're translating?
This is a character on the SAIL keyboard only. You can use another character if you don't want it. So I gave here. What I did was in this. Can we have it on the screen? What I did was I said that character whose ASCII code is 27 is going to be used for this purpose, and whatever character, if I wanted to use an @ sign or something like that, I could do it. But then I'd use ASCII code 100 instead of 27. For that. So in fact, for different keyboards, you would use a different character for this. But it's the most natural one to use on our computer.
You have to define it yourself.
I defined that. This is not part of Tech. Yeah. And what it said is that what I did was saying that when I typed that, it means a control space and then a penalty in front of it saying a bad place to break between lines. That's it. But that's besides. But that's what I define that to me as a shorthand for saying bad place to break, but then give a space. All right, now let me see. I see that we only got 5 minutes left to go, and so I better defer the talking about mathematical formulas until tomorrow. So I'll just talk the rest of the other 5 minutes about straight text. I turn to another page in here which talks about the building that we're in.
Don?
Yeah?
On this example, you didn't talk about how to center that line. Is that something we shouldn't do?
Right. Yeah, that's right. At the very beginning, let's talk about the beginning of the handout, right? So because that's something that's easy to see how we did. So the very top line here, we had this notes, and And so how did I do that? Read this line here. It says CTRLINE. That's the control sequence. Center, make a centered line. Okay, center line, and then I type this brace, this opening brace symbol, and then the closing brace. All of that is supposed to be centered on a line. Okay, and that will do it. Now the BF means boldface. So this is the next control sequence I said here. That's boldface applies to this thing that's centered. When I typed BF, this is a control sequence that is not standard to TeX, but almost always used by people. And at the very top line of the file, I said input basic, which brings in the most common control sequences that people need. So the very first line of this file said input basic, which brought in the standard, and the manual talks about all the control sequences in BASIC. One of them is CTR line, one of them is BF. So this gives you boldface type and the ability to center on a line. The next line here said V size 11 true inches. That's why this page is long. It says that it should be 11 inches of copy on one page. The next thing defined a special font that I was using that isn't in BASIC. It isn't a BASIC font. When you get to the bottom of the handout here, it's in a typewriter-like font, and so I brought in this typewriter font on my third line here. These are things that you won't need for your first exercise. I just explain it for those of you who know. And so the first real thing. So actually, if you're doing your own paper, the first line of your file you would say input basic. And then the second line would say center line, and then you wouldn't have any special thing like a control sequence for something special like TeX. Okay.
Question.
The next line is the only other thing I want to do. Yes. Do you have a question?
Yes. Below you broke a word modification. Did you do it yourself, or the TeX did it?
The word modification I broke by myself. Yeah. I'll answer that in a sec. Thanks. The next thing I mentioned here is I said vskip 12 pt, and that gave the space between this line and this one. Vskip means a vertical spacing, and so 12 points of vertical spacing was added there. PT is points, and 12 points is about 1 line's worth, 1/6 of an inch. So I said, I could have also said vskip 0.16 in for 1/6 of an inch or something like that. But vskip was what made the space between this line and the next one. Now we had this question: why did I have mod control \hyphen IFA \hyphen K \hyphen shuns there? Okay, and the reason is that I wanted to hyphenate that word, and TeX didn't hyphenate it correctly. The reason is that it has this FI in fine printing, the letter F followed by I it gets typeset as a special character, which is different, and so it doesn't look like so it looks to TeX as if this word isn't all made out of letters because it had that ligature in it, and so the hyphenation algorithm got mixed up. So I had to hyphenate this one manually. This said, these are desirable places to put hyphens in if you need to.
Question?
Yeah.
Going back to the title line again.
Okay.
The boldface command apparently takes in more than just the next field. Where is the boldfacing terminated?
It goes to the if you give a command of change of font, it goes to the end of the level of braces where it's in. So center line, for example, is inside braces. So the boldface disappeared after. If you didn't, if I had said boldface up here and not here, then everything would be boldface. But since this boldface was inside of braces, it goes away afterwards. And that's something that I guess we didn't see We didn't see how to get italics because there's no italics on this copy, but there's but you do the same. Yeah, there was one in the Stanford book. We'll see it next time. Here's an example where I had to say Fortune magazine, okay, and so that's very easy to do. You just say, let me see, Terman also. Where are we? Here we go. Fortune. I said brace, italic, Fortune, close brace, and so Fortune was in italics, but nothing else. Okay. Here I hyphenated university by hand. Actually, I wouldn't have had to do that, but we'll talk about that. One more question, and then time is up. I'm sorry, there's people waiting.
Are you indicating the beginning of a new paragraph by entering a blank line in the input file?
Oh, yes. Gosh, thank you very much. I forgot to tell you that's a very basic thing. These blank lines here are terrifically important. That tells Tech that's the end of a paragraph. Time to start a new one. And especially the last one, the very end. I also got to tell you what you got to do at the end. So at the beginning of your file, you say input basic. Between paragraphs, you give a blank line, and at the very end of the file, you should give a blank line, and then vfill, and then end. These control sequences. Vfill means fill it with a lot of space, as much as you need to fill the page, and end means this is the end of the whole manuscript. So you need that at the end, otherwise Tech will just keep waiting for more. All right, so you'll have problems with it, of course, today, but that's the